بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وينزل عليكم من السماء ماء ليطهركم به ويذهب عنكم رجز الشيطان وليربط على قلوبكم ويثبت به الأقدام.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. Dear brothers and sisters, in this session we are going to elaborate on the rules of Hayz. Hayz means the menstrual blood or the monthly period or the menses. Of course, there are different words used to refer to the same meaning. So we will use the word menstrual blood or menstrual period, menses or Hayz. These are some of the which we may use in the process of explaining the rules of monthly period. The first question in regard to menstrual blood is, what is the menstrual blood like? What are its features and what are its characteristics? The menstrual blood is usually thick, it is dark, it comes out with gush and with a little irritation. It's not always the case like this. It usually is like this. It's usually thick and dark, and it usually comes out with irritation. Now, women or girls who are between the ages of 9 and 60 or 50, according to some rules and according to some fatwa, are the women who observe menstrual blood once every month. Girls who are 9 years old or less than 9 years, and women who are 60 or more than 60 years old do not observe Hayz blood. They do not see the menstrual blood. So if they see any kind of blood, they should treat that blood as istihada blood or the irregular blood. Obviously, the ladies and girls know very well that the rules of Hayz are some of the most difficult and the most complex rules. It's even difficult for me and for people like me to explain the rules of Hayz. Of course, the offices of ground religious authorities do receive hundreds of emails regarding the very subject, concerning the very subject. But again, despite the answers and despite the explanations given and despite the books written, we again see that the rules of Hayz and the rules of menstruation remain to be ambiguous, remain to be unclear. Inshallah, in this session I will explain some of the rules and will give the details. Although I am very much sure that I will not be able to cover all the rules, but I will explain some of the rules which are in use, which are needed, which are badly needed, and which a woman should know, an ordinary woman. Dear sisters, it is very important to know that the period of Hayz is not less than 3 days. It is not more than 10 days. If a woman sees blood for less than 3 days, even for a small margin, the difference could be 1 hour or 2 hours. A woman might have been seeing blood or discharging blood for 2 days and 23 hours, not 24 hours. Again, that blood is not considered to be menstrual blood. That blood should be considered as istihada. So the first 3 days should be continuous. There should be no interruption. There should be no stoppage. The blood should flow. And of course, it is not necessary that the blood should come out and soak the pad or the wool which a woman wears. The internal existence of the blood is necessary if the blood has to be counted as the Hayz blood or as the menstrual blood. It should exist internally. It is not necessary that the blood should flow out and should come out and soak the pad. The internal existence of the blood is important. Now, it is not more than 10 days. If a woman sees blood for more than 10 days, for 11 days, for 12 days, and for 13 days, the extra days are not considered as Hayz. The extra days should be considered as istihada. Of course, as I mentioned in the previous session, a woman who is in the state of istihada should offer prayers, should observe fast, and should do everything that an ordinary woman does. Or she should do every religious duty that a pure and clean woman does. But a woman in the state of Hayz cannot do this. It is haram for her to offer prayers. It is haram for her to do certain acts. Inshallah, I will explain these. The things which are haram for a woman, or the acts which are haram for a woman. Now, before explaining those rules, I have to elaborate on a few other questions and a few other issues related to the same subject. Now, probably some people might ask as to whether pregnant women and breastfeeding women see any menstrual blood or not. Do they see or do they have any menses or not? The grand religious authorities have said that, of course, it is very much possible, very much likely, that a woman who has conceived a child and a woman who is already breastfeeding a child might have menstrual blood. She might discharge blood. It is possible, it is likely. Unlike the common belief among the women that a woman who has conceived and a woman who is pregnant never menstruate, never sees the menstrual blood, of course, the scholars have said that it is possible, it's likely that she might see the menstrual blood, that she might discharge the menses or menstrual blood.
يا محول الحول والأحوال حول حالنا حول حالنا يا أحسن الحال.
I should further reiterate and emphasize on my point that if a woman sees blood, she should see the blood for 3 consecutive days. It is important. It is very important to be taken into account. The first 3 days should be continuous. But if a woman sees blood for 3 days or for 4 days and the blood stops for 1 day and again it starts on the next day, and maybe the blood might stop again on the 6th day or on the 7th day, and it might start on the 7th or 8th day, then the blood which is seen on the 6th, 7th or 8th day is considered as menstrual blood. Because after the 3rd day of menses, it is not necessary that the blood should flow continuously, that the woman should see blood continually. No. The blood might stop on the 4th day, on the 6th day, or on the 8th or 9th day. What is important is that the total number of days in which a woman sees and observes blood should not exceed 10 days. Of course, when a woman is in the state of purity, when a woman does not see blood and flow and she is not discharging blood, she must fulfill her obligation. She must take action for ghusl. She must offer prayers. And she should do all other obligatory duties that a normal woman does. She cannot, under the pretext of menstrual blood, stop offering prayers or stop fasting. She must do all these. So the total number of the menstrual period or the total number of days in which a woman is in Hayz should not exceed 10 days. Of course, as I said, there should be no interruption during the first 3 days. It should continue, and it should continue coming out, or the blood should exist internally during the first 3 days. This is an important condition in order for the blood to be considered as Hayz. Now coming to the acts which are haram, to the things which are haram for a woman in her menses to commit or to do. What are those haram things, or what are the things which are forbidden for a woman? Obviously, it is haram for a woman to offer prayers. She cannot offer any prayers, whether it is recommended prayers or whether wajib prayers, apart from Salatul Mayyit, she cannot offer any other prayers. It is haram for her to offer and to approach prayers. There is no question of wudu and tayammum, and she cannot get purified as long as she is in the state of menses, as long as she is observing the menstrual blood. As I mentioned, all those things which are haram for a woman in the state of janaba are also haram for a woman in the state of Hayz. Like touching the script of the Holy Quran, like going to Masjid al-Haram and Masjid al-Nabi, like entering a mosque, picking something from the mosque, or leaving something in the mosque, or pausing, staying in a mosque. These are all haram. These were the haram things for a woman or a man in the state of janaba. Those things which were haram for a woman in the state of janaba are also haram for a woman in the state of Hayz. She cannot, of course, touch the scripts of the Holy Quran, and she cannot also recite those verses which contain the obligatory sajdas, or those surahs, chapters, which contain the obligatory sajdas. Of course, depending on the marja or the mujtahid whom you follow, some scholars have said that it is not permissible to recite the whole surahs, and some have said that it is not permissible to recite that verse which contains an obligatory sajda. Another haram act is to have sexual intercourse with a woman in her menses. It's haram for a woman to approach her husband for sex or for sexual intercourse. She cannot, under any circumstances, have sexual intercourse with her husband. And of course, her husband cannot also approach her for the same purpose. It is one of the great sins to have sexual intercourse with a woman while she is in her monthly period. Of course, there is no doubt that if a woman and her husband engage in sexual intercourse while the woman is in her monthly period, then it would be necessary and obligatory for the man to pay kafara, or to give an atonement, to pay penalty. In addition to seeking divine forgiveness, in addition to istighfar and doing tawbah, he should, of course, give penalty. He should give kafara. Now, what is the kafara of having sexual intercourse during monthly period? The grand scholars have said that the kafara of sexual intercourse during monthly period depends on the time and the days in which you have sexual intercourse. If the period of Hayz is divided into 3 parts, the kafara would differ if the sexual intercourse takes place during the first part. If it takes place during the second part or in the middle of the Hayz period, then it would be a different kafara. But if it takes place near the end of the period, monthly period, the kafara would be different. Now let's assume that a woman sees blood for 6 days. There are 2 days in the beginning, 2 days in the middle, and 2 days at the end. If a man has sexual intercourse during the first 2 days, the kafara would be in gold coins, weighing
ناجيتك يا رحمن ودعوتك بعفوك يا ديان يا خالق الإنسان الله 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 يا خالق الإنسان الله الله الله
3.457 grams. It is the penalty for the first 2 days or the first part. Now, if a man has sexual intercourse in the middle of the period, the penalty is 1.729 grams. 1.729 grams. But if the sexual intercourse takes place in the last 2 days, the kafara would be 0.865 grams. In case a man has sexual intercourse during the first 2 days, during the second 2 days, and during the third 2 days, 3 times in fact, then the total kafara would be 6.51 grams. The total, it would be necessary for the man, to give a total of 6.51 grams of gold. Now, again, there are people asking questions about any kind of pleasures. Is it permissible for a man and his wife to engage in any kind of pleasures, sexual pleasures, not actually sexual intercourse? Of course, the grand religious authorities have said that a man can derive all kinds of sexual pleasures from his wife, with the exception of sexual intercourse. Sexual intercourse is forbidden, but foreplay, touching and kissing and all these actions are allowed. There's another question. What about approaching a woman from behind? Is it allowed or not? What is termed in today's language as anal intercourse? Is anal intercourse allowed or not? Of course, anal intercourse is forbidden. It is forbidden if a woman is not consenting to it. If a woman is not agreeable to it. But of course, if she agrees, if she consents to sexual intercourse, in that case, anal intercourse would be reprehensible. It would be strongly undesirable. It would be extremely abominable. It is allowed, but it is abominable. It is extremely reprehensible. In case there is no consent and the woman he does not have the right to insist or to have sexual intercourse from behind or from the back passage. Other kinds of sexual pleasures are allowed. There is no doubt and there is no actually ambiguity about it. Now, again, there are certain questions arising if, for example, a woman is not certain whether she is in the state of Hayz or not. She might be suspecting, she might doubt or suspect that she might be in the state of Hayz, but she has not checked herself, she has not examined herself, in which is it permissible for her to have sexual intercourse or not. The grand religious authorities have said that sexual intercourse is haram also, even in this case, and when a woman may not be certain or is not certain of being in the state of Hayz, she cannot even have that kind of sex, but she can of course engage in other kinds of pleasures. Now, what if a woman was ignorant or if a man was ignorant about the prohibition of having sexual intercourse during the monthly period? She did not know that sexual intercourse was forbidden. The woman did not know, the man did not know, and they were ignorant. Should the man or the woman give kafara, give penalty in the case of ignorance or not? the religious authorities have said that kafara is not payable in the case of ignorance, but it is payable in the case of a person knowing the rule, knowing her duty or knowing his duty. If a man has sexual intercourse with a woman in her menses on account of ignorance, because of having maybe forgotten the rule, he need not to pay kafara. And coming further, explaining further the rules, what about the prayers or qaza of the prayers? As you know very well that it is haram for a woman in the state of menstrual period to offer prayers. And even the qaza is not obligatory on a woman. She might not offer prayers for a period of 10 days, 7 days, 8 days, 9 days. And later on, when she enters the state of tahara, it is not necessary for her to offer the qaza of the prayers. But of course, it would be necessary for her to offer the qaza or to keep the qaza of the fast which she missed during the menstrual period. Fast is, she cannot observe fast, of course, as you know well, when she is in the state of menstrual period, but after she has come out of the state of the menstrual period, and when she is clean, it is obligatory on her to give the qada and to observe the qada of the missed fast. If a woman is observing fast in the holy month of Ramadan, she has been observing fast from morning till afternoon, and a few minutes or maybe 1 hour is left until sunset, and before iftar, all of a sudden she starts feeling that she has entered the state of Hayz. She is now discharging blood, the blood of Hayz. Is her fast valid or not? Of course, it's not valid. There is consensus among the scholars that her fast becomes void and she cannot have the niyyah of fasting. She cannot maintain and keep fasting. She must eat something and her fast is broken. One more issue that is necessary to be taken into account is that, can a woman be divorced while she is in her menses? All the scholars have said that if a man knows that his wife is in the state of Hayz, then it is forbidden to divorce her. Instead, he should wait for some time until he has come out of the menstrual period. And when she is clean, then of course her husband can divorce her. But as long as he is in her monthly period, the divorce would not be valid. The divorce would be void. This is a ruling which very few people know, and there are many people who divorce their wives while their wives are in their menstrual period. They should know that the divorce which takes place during this time is void. These are some of the rules, very necessary rules, which I explained regarding Hayz. Of course, there are other rules, and of course, as I mentioned, the rules of Hayz are very difficult, very complex, and the details are there. A woman there are different categorization, there are different classifications. A woman may have, when it comes to the habit of a woman, when it comes to the time period in which a woman observes blood, so there are different suppositions, there are different cases. A person, a girl or a woman, should act according to her duty as prescribed, as has been explained by the ground religious authorities. For further details and information regarding the rules of Hayz, I request you to refer to the epistles and risala of ground religious authority. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
اللهم انفعنا بالعلم وزينا بالحلم وجملنا بالعافية وكرمنا بالتقوى إن وليي الله الذي نزل الكتاب وهو يتولى الصالحين